I'm Angela Kaler, Marketing Manager.
And I'm Paul Miller, Technical Sales Engineer at PIC Wire and Cable, the premier interconnect solution for the aerospace and defense industry.
And we're here at the NBAA in sunny Las Vegas, sitting down with Michelle Curran. And you may know her better as MACE. And you have some extremely decorated military credentials. Tell us about those.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'd call them extremely decorated, but I have some unique experiences for sure. I'm a combat veteran, so I served on active duty in the Air Force for 13 years, flew F-16s as a fighter pilot, and then 3 of those years I was a solo pilot for the Air Force Thunderbirds.
And not only that, but you are also the USA Today bestselling author of The Flip Side. And I love this title. It's How to Invert Your Perspective and Turn Fear into Your Superpower.
Yeah, so I worked on that for 3 years and it just came out like a month ago when we're recording this. So it's very exciting and fresh. And yeah, it's a milestone for me for sure.
Awesome. Now, we first met actually back in July of this year in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and that was at the EAA Air Venture. For those that have never been there, it's a week-long event of just full-on everything aviation. And, tell us why you love being there and what that means to you.
Yeah, so it's in my home state of Wisconsin. So it's just a couple hours from where I grew up, but it is like the biggest aviation enthusiastic community-based event I've ever been to. And I've gotten to do air shows all over the US and internationally as well. Mm-hmm. Nothing is like Oshkosh. It is everything from home built to experimental to military to the business side. And everyone there is just so supportive and so excited. And so it just brings the aviation community together.
I love that community. And, being there and learning more about you and your story, I knew that was something that we wanted to get the message out and get together with you again, because your message, it's bold and powerful, just like you are. We really felt that aligns with what we do as a company too, and our guiding principles. So how we operate, what we value, and how we lead.
Yeah, I love that. I think there are so many things that I got to learn in my unique military career that apply in other segments of aviation, whether that's commercial or whether that's business, but also just with teams and companies in general. This high performance, this overcoming self-doubt, facing fear, trust, and teamwork. So there's just so many themes.
It's really fun to see how the business community and the defense community all overlap with that love of aviation. It's infectious.
It is. And they're so welcoming to one another. Like, we're here at this massive business aviation event. I'm not personally part of the business aviation industry, but I feel like I've been just welcomed, like I'm one of their own. And this is my 3rd time attending this event. And now I walk around the floor and I see familiar faces and I get to connect with people that I've met, the year prior. It's really cool.
Well, you're such a bright, shining voice and figure for representing so much important things like overcoming self-doubt and the message you're speaking. People want to join in on that. They want to see that face, such as yourself.
I think it's this combination of the Thunderbirds still get put on a pedestal as kind of just this extreme performance side of aviation that's a little bit different than the business aviation side of the house. But it's also the fact that I speak on very relatable topics.
Yeah.
And whether the person is self-aware that they struggle with self-doubt and imposter syndrome and fear or not, like they hear me talk openly and they see themselves in it. And I think that's empowering for people to realize that I went and did this like cool thing in aviation, but I struggled with fear and self-doubt and all the things that they deal with. So it opens up the doors to possibility of what they can go do.
And speaking about the Thunderbirds, why don't you tell us about how you started your military career and some of the obstacles that you faced and then how you navigated through that?
Yeah, so I was a little bit late to decide that I wanted to pursue aviation. I was in high school and I needed a way to pay for college. So I applied for an Air Force ROTC scholarship, but I went to college on that scholarship as a criminal justice major.
Wow.
Because, yeah, I know everyone's all shocked by that. I think I loved the X-Files growing up. And, not the most realistic interpretation of what FBI agents do, but I was like, that looks cool. I want to kick down doors. Let's go. But then halfway through college, I'm already on this Air Force scholarship. I was going to do just 4 years on active duty, pay back my time, and then get out and apply to the FBI. But we visited an Air Force base down in Florida. I saw 2 F-15s take off in full afterburner, like close up. I'm on the edge of the ramp, and I am just like forget the FBI. Yeah. I have to try to go do that. it was just a spark of inspiration. And I think a lot of people get that when they see fighter jets. But I also was just a really driven, determined kid. And I was like, cool, now what do I need to do to actually make that a reality? So I put my name in the hat to compete for a pilot slot, got one, and went off to Air Force pilot training.
And was it during training that you got your call sign? I've heard that there's a great story about that. Can you explain it a little bit?
Yeah, so people always want to know about fighter pilot call signs. I feel like Top Gun made them this like pop culture phenomenon, but they don't tell you in the movie any of like the fighter pilot culture of how you get a call sign. So you get it when you get to your first operational squadron. So I went through pilot training. I got the F-16. I went through a year of F-16 training. And then I found myself at my first combat squadron where we would actually deploy or, frontline operational unit. And that was in Misawa, Japan. Okay. So I'm brand new. I'm still a lieutenant. I'm like barely know how to fly the F-16. I'm very, very junior at tactics. Like those are still very overwhelming. I'm learning so much. Feel in over my head most of the time. And about 3 months into your time at your first squadron, you'll finish mission qualification training, which now you are like blessed you can go into combat. Yeah. Not that you're going to the next day, but you have completed the training to qualify for that. That is usually when your squadron gets together and they kick you out of the room and everyone who already has a call sign is in there and they're like, okay, Lieutenant Curran, what massive mistakes and dumb stuff has she done in the airplane over the last 3 or 4 months? Let's give her a name based on a mistake that she made. So it is often cool sounding, but usually not a story about you doing something cool.
Okay.
It's something you messed up and you have no say in it. Like it is given to you. You do not get to pick. If you want to be called something, there's zero chance they're going to name you that. It's okay. Like the opposite. If you push back, that's probably what you're going to be called. So for me, it was my second flight, I guess, in Japan is what earned me my call sign. So they didn't really need 4 months of material for me because it happened in like the first week. I went out on a dogfight training flight. So it's me and my jet by myself, my instructor and another F-16. And our goal is like 1v1 air to air. So my whole goal is to get behind his aircraft and gun him. But again, this is training. It's one of my squadron mates. Our guns are safed up. I'm not shooting actual bullets at him. And so we start, and I am very junior, very basic habit patterns. So from training, I know I should light my afterburner, and that works pretty well for the speed I need, and then I could do everything else. Well, turns out I did that, got fixated on all of these other things I needed to manage, and just forgot I had a left hand. Like I never modulated the power once. So I ended up going supersonic on accident, did not even recognize it was happening airborne, which people are like, that seems like a good idea. Like, why would you not want to be supersonic? Well, he is turning to try to get away from me. I am trying to turn to get behind his jet. And when I'm going that fast, I can never turn tight enough to actually get there.
Yeah.
So zero chance I'm going to win. But also because my jet had so much speed on it, when I rolled and pulled back on the stick to try to point at him, I hit 9 Gs, so 9 times the force of gravity, which is not uncommon in the F-16. Okay. But then I had so much energy on the aircraft that I just held it. And I held it for about a full 360-degree turn. So that is a long time to pull 9 Gs. I actually almost G-locked, which is where you go unconscious from the G-forces because it pushes the blood out of your head. And you can strain against that, but only for so long. And so I got full gray out, then tunnel vision, and then actually complete what we would say light loss, as in blackout my vision. I can't see anything. Yeah. Yes. So people are like, Mace is a cool call sign. I'm like, and again, for people not in aviation, it does sound like a cool story. They're like, afterburner, supersonic, 9 Gs. Like, heck yeah, that sounds awesome. But you black out, go unconscious in a jet when you're the only pilot.
And that's it.
People have died doing that, right? Like it can have catastrophic results. So honestly, it was not a cool experience. I felt a lot of shame and embarrassment and just failure around that flight. Because I was like, I'm not cut out for this. How did I make that massive of a mistake so early out like I've been here for a week and I've already messed this up. And so fast forward to a few months later, they end up naming me MACE, which stands for Mock at Circle Entry. It's an acronym, as many of our call signs are, but Mach is breaking the speed of sound. And then circle entry is just the maneuver that I was doing during the dogfight. So that is the story. Cool sounding call sign, not the coolest flight. And yeah, came from something I messed up.
Well, you own it. Yeah.
Now you own it with pride, right?
I do. That took some time.
I can imagine.
First, I was not embarrassed. It was more like that feeling of shame. I would tell when people would ask how I got my call sign, I would explain what the acronym meant. And I would be like, I accidentally went supersonic. And we'd be like, oh, yeah, that happens. What I wouldn't tell them is how I almost G-locked, because that is like a much more serious mistake. And the repercussions can be so severe and so tangible, like directly how that relates to an aircraft hitting the ground. And so that part I was just ashamed of, right? Because I was like, I put myself at serious risk and this airplane worth millions of taxpayer dollars at risk and like all the things. So I would only give them half the story for quite a while. But it took some time, some separation, some wisdom to get to the point where now I don't have those negative feelings. It was a pretty honest mistake and I learned a lot from it.
Do you think it's common to kind of feel that way, especially in the career that you're in?
Yes. But at the time, I thought I was the only one feeling that way, which led me to this feeling of like classic imposter syndrome where, you know, I have this flight and I'm like, oh, this is a really serious business that I've chosen to pursue. And that was kind of like the wake up call of just how quickly things can get out of hand. And also, I don't feel like I'm cut out to be here. Like if I can make that simple of a mistake that early on in one of the most basic missions that we do, how am I going to go do these complex missions? How am I going to go execute in combat in the real world and do things where there's 50 aircraft involved, not just 2? And so it really took me from, I think, the normal level of anxiety that you can have as a beginner in a difficult career field and sent me down this complete path of just believing I didn't even deserve to be there and that everyone else, even the people that were also beginners, somehow just knew so much more than I did.
Do you think it was an extra stress on you as a woman versus all your male counterparts?
Yes, I think that layered with the inherent pressure that everyone feels because I did feel under a microscope. And I also felt that I needed to kind of be hyper aware of everything I said and did and how I reacted to what other people said and did because I was trying so hard to fit into this fighter pilot culture. Yeah. And I just naturally, I didn't fit in. And so when someone would say something that might be like deemed slightly inappropriate or whatever, everyone would look and be like, oh, Mace is in the room and just wait for my reaction. And I'm so young. I'm new to the squadron. It's not up to me to determine what's acceptable culturally in this organization, right? That should come from the top down. But I felt this pressure where if I go along with this and laugh along, now it's all okay. And I'm not rocking the boat and I'm one of the guys and I fit in. But am I betraying A, my own values? And then B, am I betraying the next woman who comes into this unit by continuing to foster this culture that doesn't create that belonging? And so I don't think there's a right answer for how to respond in that moment, but it just leads to a lot of overthinking and a lot of distraction from what I'm supposed to actually be doing there, like becoming the best fighter pilot I can be. And just that cultural part and trying to belong was pretty exhausting at first.
What did you find was your biggest skill to success in navigating those feelings?
I would say I didn't navigate it the best at first.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm hypercritical of myself, as a lot of us are. And so I would just dwell on those conversations and those moments where I did like react to something that someone did and be like, was that the right decision? Oh, I should have done this. I should have been funny and like made a joke back. Like I would just overthink that at night. And that's distracting, from my primary mission. But when I look back with some hindsight, I think something that would have really helped me in that case would have been the willingness to be a little bit vulnerable and find a mentor in the squadron and be like, I'm really feeling like all of these pressures and like I'm struggling with trying to prove myself in this world. And I can almost guarantee whoever that person I confided in would have said that they felt the exact same way when they were a young fighter pilot. And I think that would have normalized it a little bit for me. In my mind, confessing that I was feeling all these inadequacies was a failure, right? Like that was a vulnerability. And that was an indicator that I wasn't the type of like tough type A person that would succeed in this world. So I really felt like I had to overcompensate and just prove myself.
Do you feel that held you back in maybe reaching out or asking someone else to become a mentor or help you kind of navigate through some of those?
I stumbled my way through it, but it took a couple of years. everyone that's new in that world has to go through that growth path, but it could have been a lot shorter and a lot less painful had I, had some support. And it's not a hit on the people around me. It's more that I just had these walls up and wasn't willing to make those connections.
So I'm relatively new into the outside sales sphere. And I remember my first ever solo sales trip. I had to meet with a colleague who he's probably 30 or 40 years older than me. And I had to meet with him in the middle of nowhere, Illinois at a McDonald's. And I was so afraid of that visit, of whether I fit into this company, whether or not I could sell our products or talk about it at a high enough level. I knew the background, I had the training in it, but it was just, could I convey that same message? And one of our company's big principles is to make our customers' jobs easier. And I found that that worked really well when I was struggling with imposter syndrome, to talk to other people. And that in turn made my job easier, which then made me talking to customers a lot easier as well. One thing that you talked about in one of your previous interviews was when you were actually applying to be a Thunderbird pilot. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I just thought of while you were talking, and your mission of making the customer's job easier, is that I found when you focus on the impact you can have on other people, yeah, and what the customer needs from you, or what my keynote speaking audience needs to hear, it takes that internal spotlight and it shifts it. And now you're not so hypercritical on yourself. You're just like, how do I deliver value in this moment, rather than, did I say the right thing? Am I performing right? And you just take the spotlight off. And so that has been like just a subtle mental shift that I think is really powerful for people in sales, for people that are speaking in front of people, or even for me as a young fighter pilot, right? So that just made me think of that. But the Thunderbirds, so fast forward from this time in Japan where I really struggled with identity. And I think, honestly, I was a very average new fighter pilot. It wasn't like I was terrible at the job. I was just going through the learning that's required as a beginner. But fast forward, I go to my next unit. A ton of growth happens there. So I had spent 3 years in Japan, kind of struggling. I go to Texas after that, and I get to deploy for the first time. I become an instructor pilot. I also made a conscious decision to really push myself outside of my comfort zone, to say yes to opportunities that would come along that I knew came with a chance of failing, but also came with a ton of growth opportunity. And I became hyper aware of those moments of the contradicting feelings of, I should go do this. This sounds cool and exciting. And oh my gosh, that's a spectacular way to fail in front of everyone.
Sure. Right.
And I would make a conscious decision of like, I feel this competition, I am going to do the scary thing. And the amount of growth that came over about a 1.5-year time frame when I decided to shift towards being like a little bit bolder and just being okay, being uncomfortable was wild. Like I said, I got to deploy. I became an instructor pilot. I got to spend a summer in Poland teaching their pilots flying their jets, which was a whole nother thing to go teach in a foreign country. And so at the end of that, my confidence and my competence had both grown a ton. And so about that time, I have a few months left in Texas. I already have a follow-on assignment to go to New Mexico, where the F-16 schoolhouse was, to go teach new F-16 pilots. That's the plan. I see an email that the Thunderbirds are hiring. And now the Thunderbirds was always something that intrigued me. When people would talk about them, I would never tell anyone I was interested, because I didn't want the accountability of that. And I didn't really believe that I was necessarily good enough to be part of the team, but I would, ears perk up. I'm in the corner like, oh, what is it like? What's the application process like? That sounds fun. That sounds challenging. So fast forward to this point, I see the email. It is like the last email for applications. They're like, hey, dum-dum, if you haven't seen our previous 5 emails, applications are due next week. Yeah. Like the deadline is right around the corner, final call. So I had missed the previous ones, and I open it, I look through all the requirements, and I met every single one. And so now it is the perfect intersection of experience level to meet the requirements, along with confidence level, getting to the point where I would at least consider that I might be able to apply to the team. But it definitely wasn't this moment of, I'm going to go do this. It was, I feel this draw towards this thing, but I also feel that stress of, wow, that's like a major spotlight. That's a spectacular stage to fail on. So I go to my boss, who we had a great relationship. We had talked about mentorship and my career plan and all the things. I had never mentioned the Thunderbirds, again, because I was afraid of the accountability of like, what if I actually go pursue that? What would that look like? So I go to him and I'm like, hey, sir, so I saw an email. The Thunderbirds are hiring. Like, it was not a made for a movie moment where I was like, sir, I would love to apply for the Thunderbirds.
Yes,
No,
please.
it's like,
You sign up.
I'm like dipping a toe in the water. I'm like, so I saw this email. And he's like, and do you want to apply?
Yeah.
And again, I'm like, I think so.
Yeah.
So I keep like throwing the ball back to him. And in that moment, he could have very rightfully so been like, hey, you already have a follow-on assignment. You've never mentioned this. You should probably plan for this a little bit further out and apply next year. He would have had every right to do that. Instead, he said, I think you'd be perfect for that job. What can I do to help you get your application in at time?
Were you expecting to hear that from him?
Yeah.
I don't think I had any expectation. I think I would have gone along with it either way. But I always think of that as one of the pivotal moments in my career and life, honestly, because that's what obviously brought me to the Thunderbirds. That's what sent me down the path of doing all the stuff I'm doing now. I moved to Las Vegas. I met my husband here. Like, my life would look so different had he decided to say one different sentence to me. And I like to share that story with like leaders, whether they're in a formal leadership position or they're just mentoring a peer. Because when someone comes to you and they confide in you with this hope or this dream,
Right.
you have just been given so much power. And if you are willing to nurture that person just a little bit, to put in that little bit of extra effort to help them out, you can change people's lives. And it's like a
Definitely.
pretty incredible thing to be able to do.
So when he said that to you, did you find yourself excited, a little bit scared, maybe a little bit of both?
Yes. Definitely both. Definitely both. I think for sure had nerves when I got interviews, right? To like physically go on the road with the current team,
Yeah.
sit in front of the current 12 officers of the Thunderbirds and get asked questions and like do the interview process. Lots of nerves. Then when I actually found out I was getting hired, very excited. And then as I got close to actually like moving out here, oh my gosh, those are here's the squadron, here's the current team, here's the jets that I'm going to be flying. Then the nerves kick back in.
Right.
So it was, they constantly were handing the baton off between the two. And I would say that continued for a lot of the time I was actually on the team as well.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're the second solo lead pilot for the solo female pilot.
Yes. Second
Correct?
woman to fly
Yeah.
as the lead solo.
Did that imposter syndrome start to creep back up when you had your first flight?
Oh, for sure. So I think initially it was like, am I going to be good enough to learn this flying? But then I saw everyone was kind of on the struggle bus with that originally as beginners. Like, we're all experienced fighter pilots, but none of us have done this type of flying before. And so that was challenging, but I felt like there was a pretty clear path of like the repetition, the flights I was going to do, the syllabus that I was going to follow to get to the point I needed to be. So what I would say I felt more imposter syndrome around was like the public figure side of the job. Because no matter if you're male or female on the Thunderbirds, you are under a spotlight, right? You are representing the entire Thunderbird team, the entire Air Force, in a lot of cases, the military in general. And you are like a character at Disney World, right? Like, Cinderella can't have a bad day. You have to be friendly and personable and on and articulate. And whether that's an on-camera interview or that's talking to a child on the flight line, it doesn't matter if you have a headache and you're thirsty and you have to go to the bathroom, right? You have to be on. And sometimes those interactions were the best part of the job. They were so inspiring back to me as I got to see like this kid's life be changed by this interaction. But sometimes they were like draining to your social battery. And both of those things can be true. And I think everyone on the team experienced that. But there was a good period there, probably my first season, where I would just feel socially drained. And I was like, if I'm the right person for this job, I shouldn't feel this way. I should be excited about the honor of being in this position. And I should be, just so happy to go out there every single day and do it. And so when we got deep into the season and then I was tired and I didn't want to go have the same conversation again, I would feel guilty about that. And so that's honestly where that imposter syndrome feeling came in more than with the actual flying.
How did you navigate that self-imposed guilt in a way?
At this point, I was more willing to talk to my teammates about it.
Smart.
Some of them were open about it feeling exhausting to them at different points as well. Some of them were a little bit more close hold with that. And I remember a specific interaction where my boss on the Thunderbirds, he also got a lot of attention as the leader of the team. And then I would get a lot of attention as the only woman on the team. And so we would both have these long autograph lines, sometimes after the other pilots' lines were gone at the end of an air show. And he never seemed like he wavered or faltered at all. Like he seemed like just had it all together. I always knew what he was doing. I always knew what to say. I always had the energy. And one time I was talking to another Thunderbird pilot and I was like, I'm introverted by nature and like this just feels exhausting sometimes. And he was like, Mace, I feel the same way. It also drains my battery, but you just got to go out there and do it. And he didn't have a solution to that feeling, but just the fact that he acknowledged that he also wasn't like unflappable, I just found that like really helpful. For that little bit of
just washed away a little bit.
I was like, okay, I can still go do this, even though I feel that way.
So knowing that was kind of like a way for you to almost recharge.
So I think I also became a lot better at creating boundaries where I could, so that I could save my energy for those intense interactive times that we had to do. Mm-hmm. So like on a Sunday night, for example, when we were on the road, a lot of times we would get invited out to dinner or like go to some concert or whatever, depending on the city we were in. And I became pretty strict with myself about saving Sunday nights to just relax and recharge and go to bed early and like eat a healthy meal, not some like steakhouse 2,000 calorie butter thing, right? Because you're on the road for 9 months of the year, essentially. Okay. So it's not just like a special occasion. It becomes your normal life. Mm-hmm. And so realizing where I could eat healthy, where I could get 8 hours of sleep, where I could get my workouts in even, like prioritizing that stuff gave me those energy pockets to show up at 100% capacity when I needed to. And just recognizing that creating those boundaries wasn't a failure. It was kind of just like a necessity and not holding that against myself. That helped so much.
There's one part in the book that you talk about, and this is while you were in the Thunderbirds. You had this, once in a lifetime moment event. You all of a sudden you had your inner critic taking a lead voice. It prevented you from really truly enjoying that moment.
Yeah. So my first event for the public with the Thunderbirds is what you're talking about. And I always joke with people, like when you come to the team, one of the big things you're not really comfortable with is being in the public spotlight because you're just not used to it. So it takes some time to get used to that and feel like not overly stressed by it. And so I'm like, they ease you into situations like it's a ramp up. My first event for the public ever was the Super Bowl flight.
No stress there.
It was the largest. Yes, it was the largest stage I was ever on in 3 years. And it was like day one. Right. So for all of us, even the people that were on their second season, that is an exciting but a stressful experience. Yeah. For anyone that's seen a flyover at the end of the national anthem on national television, there is a very precise window. We are supposed to be going over at the B in Brave, like at the very end of the national anthem, and we rehearse it with the singer. We know exactly the timing. So many things can shift once we are airborne, already headed towards that stadium, right? The singer might get nervous and sing really fast, or they might be like, I'm on this grand stage. I'm going to make all these like extended flowery notes that I don't normally do. And now the song gets long. I mean, the broadcast schedule can be off slightly. There's so many moving parts. And so just the behind the scenes is wild and for those, but our timing was perfect. We go over the stadium. I am brand new to flying in this 6-jet formation and I'm on the far left wing. We look great going over the stadium. And then right after that, so we're in Atlanta. This is 2019 Super Bowl. We start a right-hand turn, which means the formation is turning away from me. So it's a fairly aggressive but smooth move for me to stay with them on the end of the whip. And I get left just a little bit behind, like a little bit wide. Honestly, to an untrained eye, people probably didn't give it a second look. But to me, I was like, oh no, like left behind. And of course, that year, the Goodyear blimp was airborne and they were filming that with us. And so they stayed on our formation on television live for 100 million people through that entire turn, which awesome because the Thunderbirds got so much airtime, but it was right when I was a little bit wide. And so I land and taxi back, you pull out your phone and you have all these notifications from people because like everyone has just seen you. So all your friends, all your family have taken video of you on their TV and they've tagged you on Instagram and they've texted it to you. And so I open it And I see the first video and I'm like, well, we look great going over the stadium. And then I see they followed us through a turn and I'm like, I'm out of formation in front of 100 million people. I had one job.
And it was like the first thing that you looked at and were thinking about.
Yes. Yes. It wasn't like how cool I was just part of history. It's a once in a lifetime experience. The primary emotion was just that stomach drop of, oh, people are going to see this and see that I'd be like, who's flying that jet?
Right.
What are they doing way out there? Like getting left behind by everyone else, even though it really wasn't that bad. So then we land, like I said, we get a police escort to the stadium. We actually get to go out on the field during a commercial break and get recognized. We get a standing ovation.
Wow.
The energy inside that stadium is insane. And then we get to go to this like VIP bar, club area, whatever. And we're like right behind the sideline, like Tom Brady is warming up because it was the Patriots versus the Rams that year. And it was just crazy to be part of like getting this behind the scenes experience. We got to go on the field at the end when all the confetti's falling. Again, once in a lifetime experience. But in the back of my mind, that whole night, it kept popping up like, oh, that wasn't perfect. That could have been better. 5 years later, 6 years later, whatever we are now, did that little deviation matter? No. No one else is thinking about it. Mm-hmm. Honestly, no one else was thinking about it that night besides maybe me and like the other left solo alumni who had the exact same thing happen to him for a Daytona 500 flyover, also on national television. The way I prioritized the mistake, right? Like the negative became my sole focus. It's that negativity bias and just let it be the thief of joy.
And then you talk about assembling a dream team.
Yes.
And how might that help them navigate something like what you just experienced?
Yeah. So for the second part of that with the dream team is like it's a mental board of directors. It's a mental list of people that you can call on for inspiration. And when you actually lay out this list of people, it gives it a lot more like tangible example of what you want to achieve. So to give a nice example to make it a clear concept. So I always use working out as the example because it's just very relatable. So if I'm at the gym and it's leg day and I have this tendency for my last set of squats to just be like, 3 sets was enough. Like I don't need to do the last set. Maybe on my dream team for fitness is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, right? Because we all know The Rock is not skipping leg day. Like if you've ever seen a video of him, like he's not skipping any days. So you'd be like at that decision point where you feel yourself starting to go towards what you've probably done in the past. You're like, oh, I'm just going to cut my workout 10 minutes short. This is good enough. You'd be like, wait, what would The Rock do? It's a play off of the "What Would Jesus Do" bracelets that were really popular like in the 90s. But this allows you to diversify, to pick very specific examples. So another one might be, say you have a short fuse with your spouse and they do something that annoys the heck out of you. My husband would know it's when he leaves the cupboard doors open. Like, why would you do that? But so say I'm about to be like, again, seriously? Is it that big of a deal? No, I can just close it. But I'm about to lose it. And maybe my grandparents have this great relationship where they've been married for 50 years. They're always, even though they have their little things that drives each other crazy, they're always very like gracious and loving and give each other the benefit of the doubt. So maybe on my dream team for relationships is like Meemaw, right? Okay. What would Meemaw do in this moment? She would just be like, not again, close the door and go on with her life, not let it like ruin their day. Mm-hmm. And so you can pick people, personal, like relationships, fitness, professional. If you are about to present in front of a group and you feel all of this imposter syndrome or all of these nerves and you're like, I'm not the type of person that gets on a stage and speaks confidently. Well, maybe there's someone in your company who you've always admired for that trait.
Wow.
Now that's your person on your dream team for that. And you're like, oh, Steve crushes it on stage. What would Steve do in this moment? Mm-hmm. He would go out there and speak about the thing he's an expert on. You've been chosen that day for a reason to speak on this topic. So what would Steve do in this situation? And then you just go up there. It's like being able to channel this alter ego that's very specific and precise in the moment that you need them. And when you do that repeatedly, eventually it just becomes you. And you don't have to have that person anymore because
that's a healthy perspective.
Yeah, you just practice it now. And now it's a skill that you have yourself.
That's very, very smart. So who are some of the people that are in or are part of your dream team?
I think it evolves over time. When it comes to keynote speaking, I always have a few speakers that I really admire that I see go out on stage that maybe if I know them personally, I know that they're more reserved, but they go on stage and they're so charismatic and they're so confident. And I'm like, okay, if they can do that in this moment, I can do that too. And then when I talk about the Super Bowl experience, and in the book, I'm like, I should have put Tom Brady on my dream team because yes, people care about the flyover, but compared to the pressure he was under, I was under no pressure, like relatively, right? So he's going out there and executing his skill set and his job on the biggest scale possible or the biggest stage possible. And I get this little tiny sliver of it. So I'll be like, what would Tom Brady do in this moment?
And at work, we love what we do. And I think that shows in everything. Like you said, we help make our customers' jobs easier. We have active military and veterans on hand. We also have engineers that are working towards their pilot's license. So,
yeah,
I mean, it's natural to us to want to be able to help somebody. And, just having that mentorship aspect in there, I think just takes everything to the next level.
What would you say was the moment now that you're on this flip side and you get to inspire people? You had a moment where you feel like you've inspired somebody so significantly?
Several. I think one of my favorites goes all the way back to when I was flying for the Thunderbirds. And during COVID, all our air shows got canceled. And now we're a demo team, an air show team with no air shows. But we have to stay current in our flying skill because we're a very new team. This is like the beginning of our air show season. So our skills are very perishable. So we need to be flying multiple times a week. So budget's already been allocated for that. We need to fly. So we do these America Strong city flyovers where we flew over a bunch of major cities in the country just as a inspirational kind of like patriotic moment for everyone who was just stuck at home.
Yeah.
Like
nice.
It was a depressing time for so many people. And we built our flight paths based on major medical facilities. So we were trying to fly over where people could look out their window in a hospital room or healthcare workers could go to the top of a parking garage and just give like a tiny little spark of inspiration and motivation.
Uplifting.
Yeah. It was very
amazing.
Challenging flying, but a really cool mission to be a part of.
Okay.
So we flew over San Antonio during that time. And, I'm back home maybe weeks or a month later, and I get a DM on social media from this 15-year-old girl who had seen us fly over, had no background in aviation or the military. She saw the jets come over and she was just like, I want to do that. It was her version of me seeing those two fighter jets take off.
Nice.
I just got chills thinking about that.
So I connect with her on Instagram. She reaches out to me, which good for her for having the courage and initiative to do that. And she also sees someone that looks like her in that role, which I think was like reaffirming for her.
Right.
So she decides, I want to go to the Air Force Academy and I want to become a pilot. So fast forward to a couple of years later, she has got an appointment to the Air Force Academy. Fast forward to this past year, and she is a junior at the Air Force Academy and just got a pilot slot. So she's going to go be a pilot in the Air Force.
Good for her.
So that whole journey took like 5 years. So to know that single flight and that single moment where we happened to fly close enough to her house where she could see us and hear us and get all the feeling.
Just another day for you almost.
It was. And so I might have never known that we had that impact, but she ended up connecting on social, and having that ability to hear this firsthand tangible story was just so rewarding for me personally. And so I'm just like her biggest cheerleader, being like, hell yeah, like go get them.
It's kind of like come full circle then.
It has. Yeah. And those are my absolute favorite. And it's another reminder that there are so many cases of that journey that I will never hear about, right? Like that was just one, but that was the best part of being a Thunderbird pilot,
right?
Is knowing that you're doing that for so many people every week when you go out there is just, it's hard to describe how rewarding that is.
Now the shift from your military career to writing a book, how did you get there? Like what did you use to form the basis for your book?
So my time on the Thunderbirds was coming to an end no matter what. I had done 3 years. Normally it's only a 2-year assignment because of the pandemic. It ended up being 3 for me. And so I was either going to go back to an operational like gray F-16 squadron, or I had the opportunity to decide to get out. And leaving active duty after being an active duty pilot for 13 years, my whole adult life, was not a decision I took lightly. But there were a few things. My family situation had changed. Like I said, I met my husband when I moved out here to Vegas. I now had a stepson. Pulling 9Gs as often as I did as a solo pilot was really hard on my body too. And I had like my back was in a lot of pain. So I was like, okay, there's some wear and tear here. Maybe we want to consider other options. But the biggest thing was those moments of inspiration that I got to have. And I knew taking off the blue flight suit and going back to a gray squadron, I just wouldn't get to do that anymore. Maybe occasionally, but not at the level that I did on the Thunderbirds. And so I started to explore ways that I could continue to impact people outside of the military. And I knew there were a few other people that were doing keynote speaking. And that seemed like a really incredible way to have the full creative control of my own story and to get to talk about the hard parts,
Right.
but the overcoming of the hard parts that I had really never talked about before. You know, as a Thunderbird, I'm talking about the team's mission. I'm talking about inspiring people and the air show that people are going to go see, but I'm not talking about self-doubt. I'm not sharing my stories of struggling with that. And so I started doing speaking and I started talking about those topics, and it was so cathartic.
Really?
Like, it felt so good to get on a stage and be like, here's the whole story. And I think it felt really good because it gets it off your chest, but also I could just see how much it resonated with everyone.
Do you think it opened up a lot of people's eyes to, you know, what you experienced and the things that happened?
For sure. I think we get put on a pedestal as these like, oh, there's people like me that feel self-doubt and fear. And then there's people like Mace, Thunderbird pilots, and they're like superhuman. They're just cut from a different cloth. And I don't really think that's true. Like, we all, of course, have some strengths and weaknesses that are inherent, but I really think that I just worked really hard at a very specific skill for a long, long time, which allowed me to get to the level that I got to. And I also had that decision where I was like, I'm going to do the scary thing and I'm going to be okay feeling that. And anyone can decide that.
Yeah.
So I think it just normalizes those feelings and normalizes that they don't have to hold you back.
And it can end up empowering you too, in a way,
It
right?
can. Absolutely.
Did you feel like when you first started this journey of keynote speaking and this other side of you, when you first got into that, did you feel like flying 500 miles an hour was harder or easier than doing what you do now?
I did ask that question quite a bit, and they're so different as far as like skill set. The flying is for sure harder, but that same feeling of being worried about failing on a public stage and being judged by other people is the same.
It's so relatable.
Right?
Yeah,
It
we
was
all
the
experience
same
it.
whether it
Yeah.
was an air show, it's the same whether it's a keynote speech. But I think what's allowed me to be successful in both is approaching them with the same level of preparation and discipline and just creating a practice and not really taking it for granted, being like, if I'm going to be good at this thing, I have to work at it, even though I've succeeded at this other thing. And so those skills, those like soft skills have transferred really well into what I'm doing now. But you asked about the book earlier, and I realized I never got to it. I would get asked all the time when I started speaking if I had a book. Yeah. And I was like, I've been out of the Air Force for 3 minutes. Like, it takes a moment. Do I want to write a book? Do I even have a book's worth of information in me? And the more I shared my story and did live Q&A sessions, people would dive into these different topics and they would be so interested in these answers that I really just took for granted as normal. And I realized that there was such a broader scope of stories and takeaways and lessons that people could really benefit from beyond what I could fit in a speech. And so that's where I started to like story source, where you like just write down all these things that happened in your life, really with no intent of how they fit together or how they serve a through line or an overall narrative. Just like get them out of your brain and onto paper. And as I did that, I was like, okay, there's a lot here. And that was the start of a book proposal.
Before the interview, you talked about that you had written 2 children's books before your main one. What was the difference in, I mean, other than the content, of course, did you have more fun writing the children's books or did you have more fun writing this book?
They're so different. So the inspiration for the children's book, early in 2019, my first air show season with the Thunderbirds, we were out in Washington, D.C., and we went to the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. And we did a meet and greet there. It's an amazing place.
Yeah.
And I went to the bookstore, which is so cool, full of space and aviation stuff, like one of my favorite like gift shops I've probably ever been in. But I was looking at the children's books and I saw they have a lot of amazing books, but there weren't many where there was a female protagonist that wanted to be in like high performance aviation that I thought a little girl would relate to. A lot of them were historical, focused on Amelia Earhart, which is great. But I think a kid, a 6, 7, 8-year-old can have a hard time relating to a historical figure. And I was like, wait, I want to write a children's book about a fictional little girl who wants to be a fighter pilot. Like that is her dream and how she navigates that. And so in my mind, I was like, I'm a solo pilot for the Air Force Thunderbirds. Like I can make this happen. Let's go. That was very naive. Turns out publishing a book it's a challenging industry to break into. So during COVID, I pitched to like every top children's literary agent I could find on the internet. And I just got a slew of no's and no responses. And I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be harder than I thought. I was just so naive to how it works. So airshow started back up as the pandemic got under control a little bit. And I just didn't have time to focus on it until I left the Air Force 2 years later. And someone reached out to me on LinkedIn and asked if I wanted to write a nonfiction book. And at that time, I was literally just leaving the Air Force. And I was like, I don't know yet. But I do have this manuscript I wrote for a children's book 2 years ago. And this ghostwriter also happened to be a children's author herself. And so she connected me with her publisher. And they're like, we love this. We'd love to help you get it in print. And so I would say it was harder initially because I had no idea how the industry worked. And I felt like I just ran right into a wall. But then when it happened so fast. It felt very easy. A children's book is like 600 words, where this is like 70,000 words.
Right.
And so I think if you condense the time where I was actively working on the children's book, it was much, much shorter. Honestly, I feel like the illustrator has a heavier lift. Like I have to come up with the story idea, of course, and the dialogue and all of that. But the illustrator is what really brings the children's book to life. And my illustrator I got paired with was just amazing. So it was really cool. And those books continue to connect with kids. People still reach out about them. And of course, they still exist. I've just been really focused on this one, which was a 3-year process. Just such a bigger scope project-wise. They're almost apples and oranges. Like they're just so different from each other.
Well, and plus, once it's that mental barrier that you talk about to get into trying something like that. Once you're in the middle of it, then you're like, okay, I'm flowing. I can feel this.
I think the children's book was a baby step that gave me the courage and confidence to be like, oh, maybe I could write a book for adults that's much bigger, much broader, and a bigger lift. So I think it was a necessary, and it was my entry drug to writing.
Do you now advocate to take some of those, baby steps?
I think it's almost always the right way to approach things. And I call them SBCs, small, bold choices. Because if you have this draw, right, this moment of inspiration, you're like, I'm going to go do that thing. And you shoot for the moon right out the gate. You're like, I'm going to do what Mace said. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to go for it. There's a higher chance that you will fail when you're shooting for something massive right away. And you might not have built up the resilience yet to weather that failure where it might stop you in your tracks. But if you do SBCs where you're like, okay, that is still my ultimate goal, but what's like the small, bold decision I can make right now, right today, whether that's reaching out and sending an email or introducing myself to someone or asking a question, like that's going to move you incrementally towards that big thing. But the steps are smaller, which means the setbacks are smaller. And it's a great way to slowly increase your tolerance for discomfort, slowly increase your tolerance for failure, build that resilience over time. And so that's kind of the way I approach every big goal now is it's like broken down into SBCs. And I'm a big proponent of make it the tiniest, easiest, doable thing that just feels slightly bold.
It doesn't sound that hard then that way, right?
Right.
And it helps build up your confidence.
Yeah, because a lot of people just don't start.
Yeah.
Because they're intimidated, because it feels overwhelming and impossible.
The only wrong thing to do is not do anything at all, right?
And that is an active decision, right?
Right.
To just not
It
do
is,
anything.
for sure.
A lot of us just kind of like ignore that, but you're deciding that you're going to fail if you aren't willing to even give it a go.
Right. Well, I just wanted to bring up your book again.
Yes.
There is a line in here that I think really resonated with me and will resonate, I think, with just about everybody as well. And as you can see, my copy has marks in it already.
Means you actually read it. I appreciate that.
So I'm just going to read here. Boldness is a bridge between slim chances and big opportunities.
Yeah.
And so really, as you were saying, if you don't take that step or the baby steps to lead up to the bigger steps, you're never going to know what's around the corner. You're never going to know what that next big opportunity is, right?
Exactly. And one of the statistics I share in my keynote speeches is about regrets.
Yeah.
And that we're 3 times as more likely to regret not doing something than doing something. Like Daniel Pink has a whole book on that called The Power of Regrets. And he talks about all these people they surveyed at the end of their lives. And the things they always regretted were not taking action. Like that was so much more common than trying and failing. Right.
Well, it's so relatable too.
So go do the thing. Like
Just try it.
yeah, right.
Awesome. So really, whether in your own personal life, in business, take this step, read Mace's book. And Mace, if you want to tell us where everybody can order The Flip Side.
Yes, so it is available on all major platforms that sell books. So it's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. If you are at an airport, you will see it in Hudson News. It's in almost every Hudson News in the country, which is awesome. But yeah, Books A Million has it. Target has it online. So just give it a Google. You'll find it.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Absolutely. This was fun.
Amazing. I love this.
We'll have to see you again at EAA next year.
Yes, hopefully I'll be back. That's the plan.
And hopefully it won't be so hot.
It's always so hot.